Welcome to Global Connections on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. Today we'll talk about Trump's promises. Are those promises coming true? And if not, why not? Our guest for the show is DeSoto Brown, an historian. Welcome to the show, DeSoto.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for having me. As usual, we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do. You know, people are still scratching their heads on why Trump won, how he won, and why he claims he has a mandate for anything he decides he wants to do. Do people care that he has not followed through and is engaged in various destructive initiatives that were not part of his platform? We need to compare what he promised and what he has done and try to understand the disparity and what it means to the people and to the country. So let me ask you, let's try first to identify the promises that he made that we can recall before the election, the ones on which presumably people voted for him. What are your recollections of that?
Okay, well, the first and glaring and foremost of all was the statement made repeatedly in 2024 by Donald Trump that, quote, he would bring down prices starting on day one of his presidency. And he acknowledged that that was the winning tactic that he employed. That's what people voted for when they voted for him. He was going to help bring down inflation and prices. And I must add that in the background of this, the Republicans in the right wing had been for years during this period, during Biden administration, had been claiming that the economy was ruined and inflation was out of control and prices were out of control. And innumerable people bought that, and innumerable people went along with that. So they believed that Biden's administration was an economic ruin. And then therefore they said, well, Trump's going to fix all that. Okay, so fast forward just a short time into early 2025. We're recording this in April 2025. And what did Trump say a very short time ago? Trump said, I don't care if prices rise. Now, what's remarkable is, and he was talking specifically about car prices in this particular situation, but what's remarkable is that the hardcore Trump cult people, the hardcore right wing, even though they were totally on board with, I'm going to bring down prices on day one, have now done a shift and said, yeah, we're going to have to go through some economic tough times, but it's all for the good of the country. And then everything will be okay because Trump knows exactly what he's doing. Well, right there is a very incredibly obvious, in your face demonstration of Trump lies, of I will bring down prices versus I don't care if prices go up. Most people with a brain will look at that and say, do you not see that he was lying? Do you not see that he doesn't actually care about you? But many others will just go along with it. So that's the main thing I remember. That's the main thing he said that won people over. And after just days, literally into his administration, he said he doesn't care about prices.
Before he said that, after he won, I specifically recall him saying to a reporter who asked him, what do you think happened here? How did you win?
Yeah.
And he said, I won on the price of eggs. I won on the price of groceries. That's how he won. So he knew that this transaction, had come full circle, that he made the promise, and then he said he won on the basis of the promise. I just want to add that.
Yeah. No, I remember that vividly. And yeah, and that is what, if you were to talk to people or if you looked at the reactions online, that is what people said. He's going to bring down prices. And again, with the background of, and the Biden years were disastrous, which they were not. Well, again, what's astonishing is that people will still support him, even in the face of this 180-degree turn and pretending that he cared about prices that everybody has to pay, and then admitting he doesn't care at all what prices people pay.
I just wonder, it's a stark disparity. Can we, you or me, identify anything that he has done to bring down the price of eggs or groceries in general? I can't think of a single thing that he's done anywhere along the way.
No. As soon as he made the promise, I mean, as soon as he got into office, he dropped the promise. Didn't make any difference. Now it was going to be, I mean, in a way, he's also made these claims of economic prosperity coming from the tremendous cuts to government, the tremendous cuts to what the government is paying out. So, in theory, there is a vague connection between I'll bring down prices by destroying the government. And there are people, again, who will go along with that because, oh, yes, our budget is never balanced. Therefore, we must hack away at the federal government and wreck it. Um, yeah, in theory, tax money is not going to be going out. But at the same time, do not let us forget, he wants tax cuts as well. So it isn't as though money's being saved. Money is being kept by people who have a lot of money. So again, if you allow him to pull the wool over your eyes, you only have yourself to blame for that. But again, that's a vague connection to I'm bringing down prices. Now, I also have to say that his attitude as a self-proclaimed billionaire always manages to come through. He will feign concern about the average person. He'll tell the average person, "Oh yeah, I'm totally on your side," and a lot of people believe that because he's a bully. But when it becomes when the truth slips out, you see he doesn't care. He never did care. He says he loves the uneducated because they can be easily swayed mentally, but he couldn't care less about whether you're paying higher prices or not, too. And his attitude came through when he was talking about groceries. And he said, it's a funny word, groceries. It's something I came up with, groceries. Nobody says groceries. He doesn't say groceries. He never goes to a store and buys food. Food magically appears in front of him. It always has. He doesn't care how much it costs. Cost of food is meaningless to him. But when he talks down to people and says, "Oh, I feel your pain. Oh, groceries," he doesn't feel any pain. He's lying. But again, he's saying it to win people over and say, "Yeah, I feel the pain that you have of high prices for groceries."
Can I examine one thing you said? So if he terminates hundreds of thousands of federal employees and knocks off all kinds of agencies that are supposed to help people, um, then he's got people believing that somehow that is going to improve the economy. Somehow that is going to improve the lot of the working man and woman. But I don't understand the logic there. Do you understand the logic? How does terminating all these people, terminating all these agencies help to bring the price of eggs down, help to improve the economy? There's just a lot of people out of work. That's what it is.
That's exactly right. But what also goes along with this is the people who have been fired from their jobs in the government have been demonized. So they've been identified as being cost, they've been identified as freeloaders who are wasting money. They're fraudsters. So a lot of people will agree with that, believe that, and say, well, we're better off without them, which is completely untrue because no, we're not going to be better off without them. One, and two, no, they were not committing waste and fraud. They were just simply arbitrarily axed because they were the first hired, first fired. Now, nobody thinks beyond the people who support this. Nobody thinks beyond, all right, now wait a minute. All these people now have no income. They can't buy things. Buying things is how the economy works. If you if hundreds of thousands of people lose their jobs, that's bad for the economy because the demand for by them is still there, but now they can't buy stuff. If people don't buy stuff, the economy doesn't function. And if you're not using tax money to do things like buy products or buy foods from farmers and then use them for essentially charitable purposes by making, putting them in school lunches, those farmers are now not getting that income. And that's also harmful to the economy. But these really basic things don't percolate into people's minds if they are simply regurgitating what they've been told by Fox News and by listening to Trump. So the realities of what goes on in an economic system are lost on them. Now, the other thing I also want to bring up is, too, in terms of promises, Trump has always said since 2016, we're making America great again, MAGA. And the acronym MAGA obviously has become shorthand for to describe people who are followers of Trump. It's MAGA. Now, those people have been told that one, the United States is being victimized by everybody else in the world economically by tariffs. Therefore, and as we're recording this just occurred yesterday, we must tariff everybody in the whole world. And again, for a lot of Trump supporters, that's fulfilling a promise because Trump has always been positioning himself as not only powerful, but a bully who says what he thinks openly. And that's what a lot of people like about him. He threatens people, he insults people. That makes him a great man and a powerful man. So again, they're believing that's a campaign promise. We're making America great again by bullying everybody in the world, by insulting everybody in the world, by destroying our alliances and friendships. And now we stand alone as, the leaders of the world, and they think that's a promise that he's making come true.
And they conflate him with the country. What he
Absolutely.
says is what the country is saying. And I recall the footage of him making his tariff speech. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Had so many American flags behind him, you couldn't even count them. He always does that. And the implication is very theatrical. The implication is that, this is a patriotic thing to do. What he's doing is patriotic, which is absurd. And he's essentially hijacked the American flag and the notion of patriotism.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And the notorious event, which I don't remember now specifically which one it was, where he walked up to an American flag and with this sickly, absurd looking grin on his face, literally embraced it. Like, look at how patriotic I am. Don't you admire me for my patriotism? No president has ever done anything as bizarre, as creepy, as weird as that. But if you're a Trump supporter, you'll go right along with it and say, yes, look at him demonstrating his patriotism. Look at him loving the flag. And everything he does, therefore, is one, good for the country, because above all, he's thinking about the country, making America great again. And people believe that. So whatever he does can be justified, mentally justified by his followers as he's making America great again. Making America great again was his foundational promise. That's always been the promise that he's been throwing out for years while he's been a politician. So in that respect, anything he does is making America great again. So you will recall the notorious, infamous statement that he made years ago that he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and people would still support him. Well, again, it's the justification. If he shoots somebody on Fifth Avenue, it's to make America great again. So whatever he does, it's great.
Didn't Louis the 16th say that? L'état c'est moi.
Yeah. Oh, yes, exactly. Exactly. So that's another part of this. Dictators usually build what's called the cult of personality. And even if they claim they're not doing it, they're still doing it. And that means that they are the figurehead of the country. They are the representative of the country. They are the embodiment of the country. And for a large chunk of the population will therefore literally worship them because they are the country. And probably North Korea is the most prominent example of that now in terms of the succession of leaders who have literally been deified in by their populaces, or the populaces have been coerced into deifying them. if I'm not mistaken, the country of Turkmenistan, which nobody knows about, is also similarly focused as a cult on their leader. So Trump, partly through manipulation that he knows he's doing, and partly from blundering into it, has created that as well. We have not yet been ordered to post photos of Trump in every classroom, in every government office, in every public square, as happens with other cult leaders in other countries. But I wouldn't be surprised if that pops up in the near future, as he already is putting out orders about ideological control of educational institutes and cutting off funding to any organization or group that doesn't literally say what he and his cult demand. So, and again, there are people who will look at that and say, hey, that's power. That's great. He's fulfilling his promises by crushing the opposition that we also don't like because we've been told by him to hate them.
Not only can we not identify any action that he's taken to improve the economy, to deal with inflation, to make America great again in any definition of the term, he's done things to essentially destroy the economy and destroy the country. It's just the opposite. It's 180 out. And I suppose when you do outrageous things like that, your cult says, well, he must have a reason for it. But let me examine with you some of the things that he's done. I mean, for example, he's working hard on getting rid of Medicare, Medicaid, and soon enough, Social Security, leaving a lot more people on the street and sick and dying. How exactly could you argue that that brings the price of eggs down, improves inflation, makes America great again, and makes a better country? There's only one direction on that sort of thing. It makes a worse country, and it puts more money in the hands of those who are running the government. That when you file your tax return, DeSoto, soon enough, you're going to be paying the same tax you were paying before, even though federal services have been significantly diminished and will be further diminished. And yet you are paying that tax just as you paid it before without getting those services. And furthermore, let me say that if you're working, there's going to be a required contribution to Social Security, even though it is under jeopardy right now. And I don't know what's going to happen when he tears it up and reduces it and takes the wings off it. Will we still be paying our taxes? Will we still be making our contribution to Social Security? At the end of the day, more money in the government without a good reason. And let me add that the tax breaks that he engineered without any hearings in Congress in January of 2017 are going to expire or already have expired for the little people, the low income people. But he's trying to extend them for the 1%. The 1% will get the benefit of any tax quote reform that he initiates through Congress. I think we'll be hearing about that soon. So what you have is the money is greater because there's fewer bills for the federal government to pay. And the tax stays the same, contributions to Social Security stay the same, and the money in the till is that much greater for the 1%. It's so clear what's happening. By the way, let me tell you one other thing which we need to wrap our minds around. Peter Navarro, who was part of the Trump administration, fellow who went to jail not too long ago. Peter Navarro was quoted in the paper last week as saying, over a 10-year period, the tariffs that Trump has in mind would yield a tax, and that's the real term, on the American people of $1 trillion. Okay, so that's in the till, and it comes from us. It doesn't come from other countries. We all know that. I mean, if we got a brain in our head, we know that. So what you have is this incredible tax. And then you lay on the fact that the existing tax and tax rates and income tax forms that you got to file are going to stay the same. But the benefits, The reform quote, the reduction goes to the 1%. So all in all, I mean, there's an enormous amount of money that Trump has control of, that will have control of, and it sort of emerges now what his real plan is to achieve all this money, dump on the little people, and help the oligarchs. I can't think of it being any clearer than it is right now.
Yeah, and people will believe anything that they are told if they are cult members. So if you are told this is good for you, this is helping, this is making America great again, regardless of whether you are shown the truth or not, you will deny the truth and go along with the lie because you are indoctrinated. And you will deny the truth by saying it's fake news. And anybody can deny anything. If you and I have lived a good long time now. We have seen people deny astonishing things directly in front of their faces more than once in our lives, in our personal lives. So that is exactly what is going on here right now. Now, let me also just throw something else in here, which I don't know exactly what's going to happen from this, but there's also cryptocurrency. Now, another aspect of the entire Trump family, the Trump gang, is the open flouting of laws prohibiting commercial endorsements and things like financial scams on the side. Cryptocurrency is an astonishing concept. It's imaginary money, it's backed by nothing. It's pure speculation. It's just nonsense. It's air. You might as well be saying, here, Jay, I have some air in my hands. Pay me for it. Oh, invest in it. Oh, look, now it's worth $1 million. That's exactly what's going on. If Trump is going to be able to manipulate his own cryptocurrency in the marketplace, which of course he's already done. He's already introduced his own meme coins, and so did Melania, for crying out loud. All of that government money, what is going to be happening to it that can get funneled into this new crypto land under the guise of making America great again by His Majesty Trump? All right, that's one thing. Now, another thing to be worried about, and people will go along with it if you tell them, the Social Security money, most of us feel, belongs to us because we paid it, and it's essentially been put in a bank during our entire working lives, our entire working careers. And when it's time, you got to give that money back to us because it's still ours. It doesn't belong to the government, it belongs to us individually. Now, if, and this is something that George W. Bush, the second George Bush tried, privatizing. See, privatizing is another big deal here. You get the money out of the government, you put it into investing, and suddenly you make a lot of banks and a lot of stock investment people really, really happy. Okay, if you say, all right, this is your Social Security money, but we're not going to keep it and dole it out to you sporadically, we're just going to give it all to you. Now, if they did that, and they talked about doing that in the past, suddenly everybody in the country has got this windfall. And if you convince them that they should put it in a bank or that they need to invest it because now you'll control your own investment and that makes it great, the government isn't controlling it, it's now in your hands. Well, then people suddenly go to every investment company they can find, and a whole bunch of new ones spring up that are all scams, and everybody loses their money. But who cares? The scammers will make the money. And unfortunately, a lot of people, if you give them a check for hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, they'll immediately blow it. They'll spend every bit of it, lose every bit of it, and then they are bereft of any money. But does anybody in the government, along with Trump, care about that? No. They just see these people as targets for scams that they can squeeze all that money out of them, and they'll be even richer.
If they get $100,000 or two or three, whatever their nest egg is with Social Security, and they get that check, they don't take it all to the investment house, whether it's real or not. they spend it. Okay. And when they spend it, what do you get? Are you ready, DeSoto? Are you sitting down? What do you get when you have 230 million people all spending in the same moment with this money that now they control? You get inflation with a capital I. The price of eggs will go through the roof. The price of groceries will go through the roof. But I want to add one other thing for you to consider, and that is this. And it just dawned on me in the middle of the night. I'll tell you what it is. The market, the stock market, which people used to say Trump cared about, now he says, I don't care about the stock market. Okay, the stock market has dropped thousands of points in the past few weeks because of all the damage and destructions he's done. And nobody on Wall Street, not even the most hardcore Republican traders, are going to say this is good for the country. They're not saying that. They're selling off. Okay, and you say to yourself, how in the world could that affect the price of eggs and groceries? That the market should be dropping like a rock, and I predict it'll continue to drop like a rock. But here's the thing: just like in cryptocurrency, where Trump and his friends are trading on it, and they want the government to have a reserve. Remember that? A reserve of cryptocurrency, so he can make an announcement any given Tuesday morning, and the price will go up or down no matter what he said, because he is the state, and he has all these cult people that follow him. But it gets worse. So the market goes down. This can't possibly help Trump. Really? It certainly can. Ever hear of selling short? My guess is this happened after October 7th, when they found on Wall Street that the terrorists were selling short. They knew there was going to be an attack on October 7th, and they bought in and sold short. And I suspect that Trump is going to play the market, but not in the way you might think. He's going to play it against the country. He's going to be selling short and making a fortune doing that. He wants to be richer than Putin, richer than Elon Musk.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, what's going on behind the scenes to most people who either don't understand it, don't know about it, and if you tell them about it, don't comprehend it and don't care. But also, even if the stock market is dropping and you as a cult member are told this means nothing or this is good, you will believe it and go along with it. You will repeat that. So when we talk about did he keep his promises or not, it doesn't matter. He could promise that the sky will be pink tomorrow. And if it isn't, people won't care. They'll just say, oh, well, it was a mistake, or it really is pink, which looks blue. I mean, whatever. They'll go along with it. So when we say promises are not being fulfilled, it doesn't matter if they're told they're being fulfilled or if they're told they never meant anything anyway. They'll just go right along with it. So I think that's the foundational thing that we need to address right here in this particular conversation. Are promises being kept? No, they're not. But for the Trump followers, that doesn't matter. They will be 100% rabidly in support of something Trump says. And if he changes his mind and says the opposite, they will just as easily switch to being 100% rabidly in support of his totally 180 different statement. So for rational people, broken promises mean something. For Trump followers, it doesn't matter. And that's what makes this so difficult, because when you confront people like that with the truth of what is going on, look at this. The prices of eggs are not lower. That doesn't matter. 6 months ago, that was the absolute focus of my entire existence. Eggs are expensive. If you tell me now that it doesn't matter, then I don't care. Or if you tell me, well, it looks like they're more expensive because now they're $15 instead of $1, but that's not really, that doesn't really mean they're more expensive because we cut government. Oh, yeah, okay, sure.
DeSoto, there's a few more promises, or maybe half promises, that we should discuss. So one comes to mind is immigration and migrants and the like, and the border. He wants to finish the wall because the wall didn't get finished during Biden's term. And then, of course, all these ridiculous detentions of students who are arguably DEI, and the termination of grants to schools that are arguably DEI. And you say to yourself, how in the world is that affecting the price of eggs or groceries or the economy? To hammer on DEI, does that mean anything really to the country? Why? I don't even understand exactly what he's doing and why he's doing it. It's a kind of scapegoat thing, like Joe McCarthy. You're a communist. You're a DEI. I know one guy got a letter that said, "We know there are hidden DEI people in your organization, and you have 7 days to tell us who they are. And if you don't tell us, there'll be consequences against you." That's like telling on your dad or your mom, telling on your cousins, your uncles, your aunts. It sounds just like 1933, doesn't it? So the whole DEI thing, he didn't. I don't think he made a promise about that, and I don't think it's worthy of a promise. I don't think it helps anybody about anything, and I don't think what he's doing on immigration fulfills a promise. Arguably, he wanted to get rid of people who he said it was a false promise. He said were rapists and murderers and drug dealers and all the worst things, which wasn't really true. But he made a promise that he would get rid of them, and by the millions, which he has not succeeded in doing anyway. And he pushes Homan around and tells Homan, "You got to give me better results. I want to go back and say that I knocked off, so many millions of people in the country." That doesn't help the economy, I'll tell you. It doesn't help anyone. And sending them without any due process to El Salvador doesn't help anybody either. In fact, it's a violation of Americanism, the true American patriot flag. And here he goes on with that and continues to do it, ignoring the courts, ignoring the rule of law, ignoring the Constitution. How does that help us? How does that actually improve the country in accordance with his promises?
Well, again, this is something that people have been told that they have totally swallowed 100%. And again, as we've talked about, everybody wants to have a scapegoat. Everybody wants to look down on somebody. Everybody will believe that they are the bad guys, we're the good guys. All you got to do is come up with some group that, as I said earlier, has to be demonized, has to be made bad, has to be made dangerous. And lots of people, when they are told those are the bad guys, will go right along with it. So if you say we're going to get rid of all the bad guys, people will say, yes, those are the bad guys. You told us they were, they must be. And then, even if you don't get rid of millions of them, thank God they haven't gotten rid of millions of them. Thank God they haven't been able to do that. And it never was plausible in the first place because logistically you can't do that. But even if you tell people, again, all you got to do is make up some numbers and show some video footage of the bad guys now in prison in El Salvador. Christy Nome goes to El Salvador with a $1 zillion watch on her wrist, stands in front of a jail cell of these guys with their heads shaved and says, look at all these things we've done. Well, all you do a few of those, and the bulk of people will just say, yes, look, you fulfilled what you said you were going to do. Look at them all behind her. And if innocent people get caught up in that, and one man notoriously, clearly has been swept up in this and taken back to El Salvador, which he came from. He was in the United States legally. He's been put in this horrible, notorious jail with no criminal activity at all. And the response of the Trump government when confronted with this is, nothing we can do about that. We can't bring him back because of this, this, and this, because of these things we just pulled out of the air, these lies we just pulled out of the air. We can't possibly get him back. Well, the average Trump person will say, so what if there's some collateral damage on the side? As long as we got rid of the rapists and murderers and all those Venezuelan drug cartel terroristic criminals, and that's what Trump is doing, why, that's a promise fulfilled and everything is going to be great because all the bad guys are getting kicked out. Now, this whole DEI thing, again, you find a little thing that you know makes a lot of people angry. And if you have disaffected white people who feel like all of those dark skinned people are getting preference over us and it's not fair because that's just not, it's un-American. We're being discriminated against. We are the ones who suffer, not the black people, not the other people, but us in our trailers. We're the ones who are downtrodden, and all the other people get all these goodies given to them by the government that we don't get. It's not fair. Well, that feeling is already there under the surface. And if you understand that, then you pull it out and throw it out into the sunlight and say, look, you remember we talked about how although those people get all the good stuff and you don't? Well, now we're going to change that. We're going to kick all of them out. And we're going to say that anybody hired as a DEA hire, whether they're female, whether they're handicapped, whether they have dark skin, whether they have a different religion, they're all no good. They only got hired because of those attributes. They're not as good as you are. Therefore, they've been taking jobs away from you. Well, now we'll demonize them and we'll kick all of them out and everything will be great. Now, obviously, when you demonize a large chunk of the population, even if you literally kill all of them or try to, which the Nazis did, it doesn't make everything all right. It doesn't elevate the entire society. It just is pulling a political ploy to get people in your control. But if you're told that they're the bad guys, we're getting rid of them, whether it does anything good for you or not personally, you will grab the American flag and march forward saying, yay, Donald Trump. You're making America great again.
Let me offer one other area we should cover, and that is peace. Peace in Ukraine, peace in the Middle East, and the relationship of the United States with our allies in NATO and the EU. I recall he made promises that he was going to bring peace to Ukraine on day one, and likewise in the Middle East on day one. But it's not day one anymore, and it hasn't happened. And I wonder if you could, see if you remember the same things, and examine what in fact he has done to bring peace to either of those places, and how successful or unsuccessful, how smart or maybe not so smart his steps have been.
Okay, well, first of all, every one of those promises was never intended to be kept anyway. These are lies that he told during the campaign to sway people to believe in him. And that's what he did, and that's what they did. And he never had any idea what he was doing. He has no idea what he's doing at any time. He reacts arbitrarily, emotionally, instantaneously, and is convinced that he's the smartest person in the world, even though he's not. And even the smartest person in the world could not do what he claimed he was going to do. The most powerful person in the world could not do those things. The president of the United States cannot snap his fingers and bring down prices. The president of the United States cannot snap his fingers and decree peace shall descend upon places where there are wars. Any sensible person knows this. But if you're not a sensible person and you're a Trump fan, you'll go along with that saying, he promised to do it, he'll do it. As soon as he doesn't do it, that's okay. People can be distracted and they don't care. But as long as they believe enough to vote for him, then it's okay. Now, you truly achieve peace through diplomacy. Either you wipe everybody out on the other side to the point where they give up, or you do it diplomatically. And when you do it diplomatically, you sit down and you talk a lot, because everybody has to make concessions in order for it to happen. You do not decree that it is all over with and then it's all over with. Trump has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He cannot do it. He will lie to you and tell you he's the greatest deal maker of all time. Well, that was never true. But Trump doesn't have the mental ability nor the mental stability to keep this thing straight if he's sitting at a table negotiating with somebody. So he's incapable of doing that. So right off the bat, there cannot be peace under Donald Trump specifically because he can't do it. And even if he was a skilled, intelligent man, it would take a long time to do it. And no, you cannot end a war in one day. So what did he do? Well, he made some threats. He made threats to Ukraine that were very pro Russia. You're going to give up all of this, you're going to give up all of that, and then maybe Russia will allow you to continue to exist. Do as I say. Well, obviously that didn't work. And all of Europe didn't agree with it and said, Trump, get out of here. We're going to support him even if you aren't. Secondly, what did he do about Gaza? He made this absurd pronouncement that he was going to treat it like a piece of real estate and give it the golden Donald Trump touch and turn it into the Riviera of that part of the world. He was going to kick everybody out, not a thought to the Palestinians, just, they'll go somewhere, who cares? Then he was going to demolish the whole place and rebuild it as a glittering resort with the Trump touch. Is that plausible? Absolutely not. Even if it was possible to dispossess every Palestinian, logistically, you couldn't even do it. Logistically, none of that is plausible. But people went right along with it. People said, yes, what a great idea. And if you don't carry it out, it's your fault. You're just going against him and you're a bad guy.
Well, it's not working well. Nobody would ever agree to the Riviera deal. He bombed without talking to our former allies. He bombed Yemen, and apparently he continues to bomb Yemen. He's threatening to bomb Iran, and Iran is saying, "Just try that, buddy." Nobody is they're understanding what you're saying. They are they're akamai about it. They know that he's ultimately, at the end of the day, weak because he doesn't have allies anymore. He blew the allies. No member of NATO is going to come to his aid. And that, kind of wrecks NATO when you think about it, because Article 5 is like over, thanks to Trump. Nobody would abide by it. And he certainly won't, and they won't for him. So, what you have is the end of the liberal world order. And these conflicts will continue, and he really can't stop them. I don't care if he spends $1 trillion a year building up the American military. He's not going to put boots on the ground. That's politically unacceptable. And he's just going to wreck it all, wreck everything. So I think he's wrecking the world, actually. And the question is, did he say he was going to do that? I promise you, I'm going to wreck the world. No, he never said that. This is a new idea that he woke up with on a Tuesday morning. It's like the Riviera. I'm going to wreck the world. I'm going to do these tariffs. Now, Europe is furious. Canada is furious. Mexico is furious. They don't all take the same public posture over it, but they all feel the same way. So America has been isolated. And my question to you is, does that help him perform any of his promises, the ones that he said in English, those promises, or does it make it impossible for him to ever perform those promises?
Well, it doesn't help with any of his promises. No, it absolutely does not. He couldn't have fulfilled the promises regardless, but this makes it even less likely. But people, again, will respond to calls for strength. People will respond to being told, people will respond to the concept of, we don't need any other country. We are the ultimate on the planet Earth. And everybody just better get in line and agree to that and pay homage to us. Because with Donald Trump at the helm, we're the bosses of everything. And you will hear and read people saying, quote, they need us more than we need them. And they'll believe it. So if you alienate everybody, there are people who will go along with that very happily and say, yeah, we should take over Canada. Yeah, we should take over Greenland. Yeah, we should take over Panama. We get to take anything we want. We don't care about the rest of them. If they don't like us, they're all insignificant. They're all smaller than us. They're all less significant than us. They don't have the same power that we have. Therefore, we can do whatever we want. If they get insulted, we don't care. In fact, we think it's great that we insult them. We think that we're showing them, they're putting them in their place because great and powerful Donald Trump is doing that for us. So, being a tyrant, being a bully, insulting people, making fun of people, belittling people or countries in this particular case is a good thing. In their mind, it's a good thing. You don't try to get along with people. You don't make concessions to people. You push them around. That's the only way they'll respect you. So if you push them around and threaten them, you're being strong, you're being powerful. Therefore, even if didn't, Donald Trump again has always said, make America great again. Well, part of the so called greatness, again, is the idea that America is the bully of the world. Therefore, because we are the biggest and strongest, we can bully everybody. That makes us the greatest because we are the one who will punch you if you get in our way or kick you if you get in our way. And people respond. There is a chunk of the population who will respond to that and say, yes, that's greatness.
But you know, the people, say in Europe, for example, may have a better handle on this, because even if the people here aren't, getting the historic education that they should, to understand the greatness. If there was any greatness, it was after World War II. It was the Marshall Plan. It was through moral support of the global South and trying to bring people together and help the world come together on a proper, good moral plane. And in Europe, I think if you just went out and talked to somebody who either was alive at that time or who studied it, they're going to say that's not what he is. He's not a statement of America being great after the war, being the global leader with the Marshall Plan and putting NATO and the United Nations together. He's not that. He's just a bully. And that goes to my last question to you. What we have decided here is that people in this country, anyway, they follow him as a cult figure. They follow him out of ignorance. They follow him out of base instincts. But here's the question: is that sustainable?
No, of course it's not. Every everything that is on top today is not going to be on top tomorrow for whatever reason. And that is true of the natural world and the human world both. Mountains that are the tallest on the world will get eroded and be nothing if enough time passes. And that's going to be true of Donald Trump. Now, here's an important aspect of Donald Trump. He is the lead bully right now, and he has a lot of worshipers. He's 78 years old and in poor health. He's in terrible health. He physically is not going to last much longer, regardless. You can prop up his mummified corpse and people will still love him, but he's not going to be on top forever. Nor when you build a dictatorship, you build into it the cracks and the potential for destruction by being bullies, by being oppressors, so that people are plotting against you, literally. And you look at Hitler, what happened? Some people did, in fact, try to assassinate him, tried to blow him up, kill him with a bomb. Didn't work. But even there were people fighting him behind the scenes. That happens in every situation like this. And this is happening. It always is going to continue to happen with Trump. So if you're on top today, somebody's going to kick you out tomorrow. There's going to be a military coup. There's going to be some kind of legal thing, or he's just going to have a heart attack. Regardless, he isn't going to be strong forever. And that's something that is giving me hope. This is not a man in his 20s. This is a man in his 70s, closing in on 80 very fast. Now, the other thing that I was trying to think of, yes, when you talk about diplomacy, when you talk about post World War II America, one of the important things that was realized then and has been carried on up until just the last few weeks is the understanding that you win people over to your side by being nice to them, by being friendly to them, by being generous to them. If you have aid programs that go out in the world and give people clean water under the American flag, you are winning them over. You are saving them from diseases. You are giving them food. You are building houses for them. You are saving them from other bad people who are trying to kill them. When you do things like that and you spend the money to do that, then you make alliances, then you make friendships, then people will come and support you. When there are other people fighting against you, those people who you've befriended will support you. Under the Trump regime, that's all out the window. It's produced specifically and purely to just money. We're spending millions on all these people in other countries. Those are your tax dollars at work. Wipe it all out and we'll save all that money. And people will go along with that. I don't want my money going to those freeloaders. That's one of the major things you can do with people is say, they're taking your money into the government and they're giving it away to other people who don't deserve it, who are freeloaders and are ideologically opposed to you. They're giving it to leftist people who are trying to do things you don't like. They're giving it to people who are anti-Christian and they're not living according to the Ten Commandments. Therefore, they don't deserve it. You convince people of that, and you can take all of the money away from everybody, and you can destroy all your alliances, and you'll have people cheering for it. Yeah, that's a great idea. Well, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And if you have no brain, you'll go along with it. But if you do have a brain, you're going to say destroying alliances, destroying friendships, destroying cooperation is terrible. And to achieve that cooperation and that support, you got to give money. You got to put money into it to make it work. Well, again, this is just, we'll just wreck the government. We'll just look at it as a matter of dollars and cents. And we'll say, this is $1 billion here and it's $1 million there. And it's being given to people in Africa and who knows where. Cut it off. And we're getting stronger that way. We're making America great again. To them, being great does not mean you've built up an alliance. You've built up a group of friends. You've built up a group of solid citizens, solid connections that everybody's going to stick together and help each other. It's instead, you kicked all that away. You destroy all that and you become the lead bully. Then you're great.
Yeah. The world is about relationships. Always was, always will be. But I
Mhm.
want to add one other point for your consideration, and that is this. There's a fellow named Jack Balkin. He teaches history at Yale. They got some good teachers there, although some have left for Toronto already. Anyway, Balkin was on our show back in the aught years, and George W. Bush was the president. And somebody asked him, "Well, can we go back to the way it was, under Clinton, uh, when we see George Bush get off the stage? Can we just return like a yo-yo to the way it was before?" And he said, "No, you don't understand. History always moves forward. And everything that happens, good, bad, or otherwise, is on the line of history. It has a causal effect on the future." Okay, so I offer you this thought, and I'd like your reaction. Trump, has destroyed our relationships. With Canada, people in Canada say they will never forget what he's doing to them, never. And as time goes by, that'll be more the case. In Mexico, although Claudia Sheinbaum is a very elegant diplomat, she doesn't forget that either. And the Mexicans don't forget that. And Europe, they don't forget that. So he's kind of wrecked the image of the United States, not only now, but into the future. They will never forget how he, representing the country, did all this damage and destruction. So what would Jack Balkin say? He would say that is Trump's legacy. And when we finish with him, assuming he's not sustainable, when we go to another set of leaders who are perhaps more into soft power and kindness and decency, Will we be able to knit the raveled sleeve of care? Will we be able to come back and regenerate where America used to be only a few months ago? Or is it too late? And there are many people that say, we will not be the same, that you can't go back like a yo yo, that whatever Trump is doing will have a long term effect, perhaps a permanent effect in many ways, on the place of the United States in the world order. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree completely that I think that there are things that are permanently changed now that are never going to go back. One thing that immediately comes to mind is that, astonishingly, this Trumpism has led to China, Japan, and Korea getting closer economically. And I don't know specifically what's happened, but they have formed some kind of economic alliance now. Okay, this is hugely monumental because both China and Korea have kept alive their hatred of Japan based on what was done to them by Japan before and during World War II. And that is still pounded into people's brains. These are the atrocities that the Japanese committed against us in the previous century. For that to be have gotten over, for these people to now say, okay, we have a common enemy in Trump. We have a common enemy in Trump's United States. We're going to build an alliance among ourselves. The economic and military connections that are going to be built up by these other countries, having been pushed away by the United States, having been insulted and kicked, and now angry about it, what they are turning away from and what they're turning to and who their new friends and buddies are, I don't think that that's going to go away that quickly. So, yeah, the permanent damage is probably there. Now, also, this is political, but economically, this is also going to function too, because if you look back to the 20th century, General Motors for decades was the biggest car manufacturer in the world, and it was the biggest company in the entire world. And that's long gone. And that's not going to come back if we tariff everything and just stick to purely the domestic market, which is now what's going to be forced to occur by the tariffs. And even though Trump is totally disorganized and totally mentally unstable to the point where he imposes tariffs and 2 days later drops them, still the bad taste and the pain of what you did to us being the rest of the world, we're not going to forget that. You're not trustworthy. We can't depend on you. You're out of control. Therefore, since we can't depend upon you, and since you've already harmed us, we're done with you. So I really think that there are going to be a lot of permanent changes to how the rest of the world functions based on the Trump actions of just a few months. I think there are things that he has permanently ruined. I think there are things that he's permanently destroyed. And it also depends on how the other governments in the world choose to remember this time period. Because if they continue to tell, if they're wary, once burned, twice shy, if they're wary forevermore, they're not going to just jump back into embracing the United States. But it also depends on what they tell their citizens, either directly or indirectly. And if indirectly they're saying, you know what, we can't depend on the United States, so we're not going to do any of these things with them anymore. Or if they choose to publicize it, or if they choose to say, remember when the USA did that to us? We're not going to let you forget it. This is what they called us. This is what they said to us. We're going to continue to either be cautious about them or we're going to actually hate them. We're going to openly hate them. And if that happens in some of these other countries, then it will take generations before people forget. So yes, there are permanent changes, and no, we can't just jump back into being the good guy. Even if tomorrow we went begging on our knees, there would still be the great bulk of people in the USA. I mean, in Canada particularly, and Europe at this moment, who would say, "Forget it. We're never going to trust you again, even if you are being as sincere as you possibly can. We don't trust you. Forget it."
Yeah, and all of that is not going to help the price of eggs one bit.
No.
DeSoto, DeSoto, we got to leave it there. I really enjoyed this conversation with you. I wish we had more time for it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to our guest, DeSoto Brown, an historian in the fullest sense. I'm Jay Fidell, host of Global Connections. We've been talking about Trump's promises and whether they are coming true. Thanks to our viewership for watching. We'll see you again soon for the next one. Aloha.